Bula, my name is Claude from the Taveuni Tourism Association, and today we're going to talk about the number one reason why people come to Taveuni, and that is diving. And we will be talking with our friend Jon Piepkorn, who's going to guide us through diving here in Taveuni. Bula, Jon, please tell us what brought you to diving.
Hey, Bula Claude. I just want to say thanks a lot for having me here today. I really appreciate it. Diving. What brought me to diving? Well, Fiji did. Before moving to Fiji 13 years ago, I traveled here quite often as a tourist. And I think my second or third time here, I learned how to dive in my open water course. Was the first thing I did. And I actually did all of my dive training up through Dive Master here in Fiji. And then after hundreds of dives, I decided to do my instructor course, and I did that back home. So in a nutshell, what brought me to diving is Fiji. The underwater world just blew me away. Absolutely phenomenal. The coral, the fish, the sharks, the big things, the little things, and Fiji and everything it has to offer underwater brought me to diving.
How did you land in Taveuni? And please tell us a bit about your experience here as a diver in Taveuni.
How did I land in Taveuni? Obviously on an airplane, but more seriously, after learning to dive here in Fiji and traveling around the world and diving in different locations, and from my earlier trips to Fiji as a tourist, as most of the people that come here can tell you, I fell in love with Fiji, and everything I've read about Taveuni and the world famous Rainbow Reef, it immediately became one of my target areas to move after leaving the corporate world in the US and becoming a full-time professional diver and dive instructor. Luckily, I found an open position and I applied online, and the next day I was on the phone with the resort owners in Taveuni, and I think within 2 weeks I had packed all my bags and was on my way to Fiji. And landing in Taveuni was fantastic, not only for the diving, but great people. And of the one dive shop resort I worked at, I think we've got, about 9 other professional dive resort diver operations up in Taveuni, and a multilingual speaking instructors and dive guides, along with the local Fijians. Immediately, I made a bunch of friends, and Taveuni then became my home, where I've been for the past 13 years.
How would you compare the diving in Taveuni compared to the rest of the diving in Fiji?
That is a fantastic question. Easy for me to answer, but I think some dive operators and resorts throughout the rest of Fiji might argue with me, because no matter what, of course, wherever you're diving, you're going to say it's the best diving in Fiji. But by far, Taveuni, for me, has been the best diving in Fiji. I've had the luxury, and I don't think a lot of professional divers in Fiji have had the opportunity to dive all of the regions throughout the country. And I can tell you without a doubt, Fiji, known as the soft coral capital of the world, without a doubt, Taveuni is the soft coral capital of Fiji. Wherever you go, you're going to see some soft corals, but when you hit the dive rights and your dive shops and your dive operators and your resort diving operators up in Taveuni, they know the currents. Many places have staff that have well over 5,000 dives per person. So we know the reefs. We know where to take you on which tide, what the currents are going to be like. We can give you a full dive briefing. And when we hit the right dive site at the right time, Rainbow Reef, you're going to know why, because of all the colors of the soft coral are amazing. But it's not just the soft corals in Taveuni, it's the hard corals. It's the schooling reef fish. It's the mantas that come by unexpectedly. Reef sharks, not uncommon to be seen. I know you've had the great luck to see small schoolie hammerheads over in your pearl farm lately. And I tell you what, I'd love to come up and dive that and take some photos with you one day. But not along with the corals and the big things that we can see, you've got the macro life, the micro things, the super small, the nudibranchs, the shrimps, the eels, the sea slugs. So for the photographer, the underwater photographer, wide angle, macro, it is a place where we don't really just specialize in one thing. Like many destinations, you go just to take photos of the small things or go just to take pictures of the sharks. You can visit Taveuni and see big things, little things, new stuff every day. And the reefs, honestly, just stunning.
We all know that every diver is a specialist of something. Some like wrecks, some like caves, some are like walls. What kind of specialist diver would love Taveuni?
Specialty diving out on Rainbow Reef and dive sites around the northern area in Fiji. I think can be two things. As a specialty diver, those people coming up to do specialty courses, you mentioned wrecks and caves and things. We don't have the wrecks. We've got some swim throughs, especially a beautiful swim through, not necessarily a cave on the Great White Wall, one of the top rated dive sites in the world, again on Rainbow Reef up in Taveuni and off Vanuatu. But I think a specialist or a specialty course that is so suited for the area and the region and the dive sites would be fish ID specialty. As I just said in the last question, my last answer, the number of species of underwater fish life is amazing. I think 500 plus species. And don't quote me on that. You'd have to go to the book. But you could go out probably every dive for 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, and every day you're going to see something new. And more than likely, if you haven't been to Fiji, you're going to see some type or species of fish or critter that you haven't seen before. So the Fish ID specialty course would be really cool. Also underwater naturalist. With the species of corals that we have, the soft corals and hard corals I spoke about. Again, hundreds, if not thousands of species of both fish and corals. It's the nutrients that feed Rainbow Reef up in Taveuni that come from the deep, deep waters in the north and south of the Somo Strait. Are what we attribute to the health of our corals and the abundance of our reef fish and reef creatures. So I think Fish ID and underwater naturalists would be great ones. And for those not faint at heart, the drift diver specialty course. We can get some really, really amazing currents up in the Somo Strait. And I've been teaching in places where they do the drift course or the drift diver specialty course, and maybe you might float along so slowly, like you almost have to fin to move. But in Taveuni, like I said, the dive operators and your dive guides, they know the currents, they know where they can take you and teach this particular specialty to you. So altogether, those three courses.
diving is great, but sometimes it's nice to do something else on an island when you travel. So what would you recommend as other activities to do here in Taveuni?
Yes. Diving is great, but also with Taveuni, what I really fell in love with in Taveuni is that it's a more remote Fiji. It's more authentic. It's off the beaten path. You've got to come up on that second flight from Nandi, about a 60-minute flight from Nandi Airport up to Mate in the north of Taveuni. So you get settled in. Your first day, you go diving. Every afternoon, I think you could manage to go see other land-based activities. Of course, our number two, at least from what I've seen from our guests, our number two top attractions, are Boma Falls, Heritage Park, and the Lavena Coastal Walk, both on the east side of Taveuni. They are good for an afternoon. If you're up to it. Many of our guests, we are a dive resort, and the other dive resorts on Taveuni, I think these two attractions are really good for your last day or two when you're off gassing. So the no-fly rule, a lot of people like to take that last day off, and we pack a lunch for you, and you get a taxi or a van ride around to the east side of the island. And here you enter into some of the most gorgeous rainforest settings with waterfalls and freshwater pools. I can't even describe how beautiful it is over there. But everyone that goes there comes back with just great stories and a great time. Of course, in Taveuni, we've got easy afternoon jaunts. If you're not diving in an afternoon, you can go up to the water slides by Lasuma, Wairiki, or the International Date Line, which of course take a picture in today and yesterday. How cool is that? We've got some great tours down on the southern end of the island in the Vuna area, the blowhole down there, or Bobby's Farm as we call it. Some great birding up in the mountains. And down at Bobby's Farm, he does a great tour of all the natural vegetation and ties it all in with cooking and what you can eat, what you can't eat. It's a very educational experience. And then, of course, up Lake Tangimavia, up on Devoe Peak, the highest point in Taveuni. You can only see this at certain times of the year, I think December, January, and it is the only place where the Tangimavia flower blooms in the world. So don't be scared when you're booking Taveuni. We are much more than diving, and your resorts and guides and accommodation owners are going to be more than happy to help you out and set you up with whatever you want to do in the afternoons.
Thanks a lot for your time today, John, and please, happy and safe diving.
Thank you, Claude. I really appreciate you having me here today, and everyone out there on the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Vinakavakalevu. Our Bula spirit awaits you, and hopefully we'll see you sooner rather than later. Mode mande, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
See